we're counting down now. Here we go. And we're live.
Yay!
Welcome, everyone, to Everything is Attitude. I'm a tiny little person on the bottom of the screen because we have two lovely guests and we want to get everyone in. So, Rosemary, I'll turn over to you to introduce the
guests. We don't care about anybody else.
we had a fun time situating everybody on the couch, but I think we have it down now, right?
So hello everyone, and hello to my fabulous co-host Al Pisano. Tonight we're going to talk about probably sort of when life throws you a curveball, or when things happen to you, when the unexpected happens. We're sort of left in a situation where it's so unexpected. We're often left frozen. We're often left, in that place of, I don't know what to do, or what do I do now? How did we put it, Al? You put it more succinctly. Well, I gave you the title. So what did I say? Because I've forgotten.
I think, that with everyone, things come along, you're kind of cruising along in life and just you get a phone call or you see something or something happens personally and it throws you for a loop and it sort of derails people. And that's that. And how do you get back on track is I think what we're talking about.
I mean, people, the some of the examples when somebody is thinking that they're good in their job, they're doing fine, everything's okay, and then out of the blue they get fired or laid off or something like that. That's one example. We lose someone, due to a tragedy of some kind. Things happen in life, don't they? They're very sudden things.
I mean, you get just quick with my, an example. My father, he went into the hospital. We thought he had a cold, and he ended up having cancer and passing away 5 weeks later. So that was completely shocking and unexpected, and stuff happens.
That's when life throws you that curveball,
exactly.
And all of a sudden you're sort of nicely cruising along. You think that life is okay, and then all of a sudden something happens, and you find yourself, it's the shock, the unexpected, the terror that we often feel in those circumstances. We can often be frozen in place. Now, both of these two ladies, who I shall now introduce to you all, those of you who actually watched this morning's show will know them. We've got Sharon, who is sitting right next to me. Say hello, Sharon.
Hello.
And we have Joanne. I can't. Joe. She prefers to be called Joe. Say hi, Joe.
Hi, everyone.
So both of these ladies, as have many of our viewers, have had, for different reasons and in different ways, have had those, let's say, those curveball moments where you think everything is fine, and all of a sudden it is not fine at all. So what I'd like to do first of all is to let them tell their story. Now there are two of them, so you only have a short. You can't go on and on like you did at lunch today. Just teasing me. No, I'm not. Do you know? You sort of, if you can tell us. I don't want to cut you off, so don't be, brief, but not too brief. Do feel free to tell us, what happened to you, each of you, and then we'll talk after that about how each of you cope with your. They are friends, these girls, but they each have their own story to tell, and a very inspirational stories too. I personally think. Sharon, let's start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened to you?
Well, in 2013, my husband was diagnosed with cancer.
You're going to have to speak up a little bit.
Okay. In 2013, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. And up until the time that he passed, we both thought that he would beat it. But unfortunately, cancer had other plans, and he succumbed in 2017. And when you lose somebody that you've been with for 38 years, your life is shattered into a million pieces.
I would imagine. I mean, well, I actually, I can imagine because I've dealt with so many people in this situation, but on a personal level, well, everybody's own personal experience, people react differently, don't they, and respond differently to the tragedies that happen to them. When this happened, I mean, it was sort of all of a sudden, really, wasn't it? That
Yes.
you know, that you thought he was beating it. You were both optimistic. You were, you know, going along, doing everything that you could do, should do, and then wham! And within a very short space of time,
Yes.
it was done. So, how can you tell us a little bit about how you felt, sort of going through that? Not the nurturing, not the time that he was sick, but I'm talking of the moment of loss or realizing that you were going to lose him, and so what were your
The moment, the unexpected moment, right,
that
Rosemary?
the
Yeah.
unexpected, yes, when the unexpected happened.
Well, when you hear the words that somebody that you love has passed, you fall into a state of disbelief at first, and it's really a combination of emotions that hit you all at one time. You're, of course, unbelievably sad. You're angry. You're bewildered, and you're numb all at the same time. And some people say, "How could you feel everything together?" But you do. You do. It is like I call it like a ping pong game where the ball is going back and forth as fast as I could see. It goes from one side to the other. That's how you feel when that
You were
happens.
saying these are your emotions, like a ping
Yes.
pong ball going back and forth and back and forth. That's a very good way to put it, actually. And so, you know, so this was the shock. We're going to talk a little bit in a moment about how you dealt with that, and also, Al, from your experience with your father, because you were very, very close to your father, so sort of having him diagnosed and then in 5 weeks he was gone. I'm going to count that as one of those, curveball moments. 1 minute you were fine, the next minute you're not fine. So maybe you could speak to that as well in a few minutes. But let's hear from Joanne. Can you tell us, Joanne? I mean, I think you've got a few stories to tell, but let's tell
the afternoon
just
the suicide one.
yeah, if you'd like,
Yes.
if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, no, I don't. I feel fine
It's
about it.
your choice. Whatever
no.
you want to talk about is your choice.
It's fine. I came home from school one day, and I was 7 years old, and I didn't see my mother there, and it was a lady across the street. And to make it short, my mother committed suicide. So I was only 7, and actually, I didn't know what to think of it because she was in the hospital, and but it was too late for her to be saved. And
So she did the
took
damage.
pills. She took pills.
and then was rushed to the hospital.
Right.
But it was too late to do anything
Yes.
about it.
Right.
Okay.
So
Now, at 7 years old, you wouldn't necessarily know those details, would you? Or did you know
Oh, I
those?
did.
You did know those details. Okay.
I
great.
actually knew that she passed before they told me.
Right.
Because my aunt came in and I just looked at her and I said, now this is the kind of emotion you would get as a young child. My aunt walked in and I looked at her and I said, my mother's gone. But you know what happened? She took her life on her birthday. And all I said to my aunt was, did you have a piece of cake? Did you have a piece of her birthday cake? And that's what I said. And that's the emotion that I went through. It was worrying about if she had a piece of her birthday cake.
Well, obviously, the trauma of it was obviously too much for you to handle. So you focused as a child. You focused on the one thing that you could relate to, which was birthdays, birthday cakes, so on and so forth.
Right.
I mean, at 7 years old, people think that maybe at 7 years old you don't really realise what's going on. But when I look at my grandson, who will be 7 years old next week, actually. I mean, he's a smart little boy. He would know exactly what was going on, and I have a feeling that you knew exactly what was going
Did.
on.
I mean, actually, I saw when the woman was there to watch over me, the neighbor. She told me that she had gone into the bathroom. So I followed my mother's footsteps. It's really strange, but I did this, and I went to the bathroom where she got sick and whatever, and I just wanted to feel her pattern. I don't know. I went through her whole pattern of what she did, and then and like I said, when my aunt came to tell me, I knew it already. I just knew she was gone.
You
I,
think
I
in some way you were
question
searching
when
for that for her? Do you think you were searching
I
for
think
her
I was
when
searching.
when you were following and trying to follow her footsteps? You were looking for her or
Yes. Oh yes.
something of her.
Was it real? Was it really real? You know.
so I imagine dealing with this unexpected event probably takes a lifetime. At least it would for me. That you kind of keep going back and forth. But when did you think you dealt or really fully dealt with it when you were younger, like 7, 8, 9, 10, or was there another time that you felt like you started dealing with it more?
I
Because
didn't
this is
start.
this you were so young when it happened.
I'll tell you the truth. There was a lot of ups and downs in my emotions, and I think when I got into my 20s, I started to be able to deal with it and understand it more. Um, and I grasped onto the only thing that I could was God. That's
Yes,
what I chose.
You said at lunch that God helped you.
Yes,
God helped you
absolutely,
through it.
absolutely. I made God my father and my mother because my father abandoned me also at the same time. So, so I had a lot of.
So you lost your mother
lost
in a very tragic way,
Right.
and then you also lost your father because he disappeared.
He abandoned us.
He abandoned you.
Yes.
He left you.
Yes.
And you say us. How many children were there?
There were 4 more. It was 5 of us altogether.
5 children.
Mm-hmm.
Your mother took her own life,
Right.
and your father disappeared.
Correct. So that's a
huge life changer right
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Right. That's
very big.
That's a very big issue that we've got, and unfortunately, I know that there are other people who have gone through, are perhaps even now going through the same or similar situation. Al, do you want to speak to losing your father briefly? Because then I want to come back to Sharon and Joanne, and I would like to ask them how, because this is a show about attitude, right?
Mhm.
So I want to, to ask them if they can, and no pressure, please. Just do it when I ask you. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I would like to ask you both. How, how did you take? What was it, or how was it that you were able to take those next steps? Now, Joanne, you talked about God, and God,
Right.
It was God who became your father and your mother.
Right.
He was, he was literally your father in heaven, so to
Right.
speak. He was the family. So I'd like to sort of, if you could give a little tiny bit of that in a second, and I'm giving you a chance to think about this. And Sharon, for you, how did you manage to take those next steps? And what made, because there are 2 ways to go in these circumstances. Now, you know this as well. Of course, I know it. I mean, I've had different experiences, but there are 2 ways to go. You can go down the terrible grief and the pain and the heartache, and just go down that narrow channel, that narrow road into negativity, oblivion, or bitterness, or whatever that is. Or you go down that road for a little way, but then you suddenly realize, because we're all entitled to go down that road a little
Right.
way, we're all entitled to feel sorry for ourselves and to do all of those things. But what is it that stops us? Because you're obviously not, either of you, bitter or angry or frustrated in any way about what happened to you. So I'm going to ask you in a minute if you can speak to what do you think it was that actually stopped you from continuing on the negative path, and turned you around from, you know, from the bitter and the angry and the frustrated and so on to, I need to get on with my life now, or whatever it was that you thought or felt. I'm going to speak, I'd like to speak to that in a few minutes. But Al, can you uh, talk about your situation a little bit, please? I know
Sure.
you mentioned it before on this show, but
Yeah, no.
given
So,
the
so for anyone who hasn't seen those, or just briefly, we, my father was really clean bit of health, real active. Didn't have many health issues for his whole life up until 73, and he had what we thought was like a pneumonia kind of thing. Went into the hospital, and they examined him. They took some X-rays. We were expecting that maybe he would have to go on some fluids or antibiotics, something like that. But we got the news that he had pancreatic cancer, and it was in late stages. And they told us right there that maybe 6 months, 4 to 6 months to live in the emergency room. They told us that. So for me, I was very numb at first. Um, I was shocked, of course, because I didn't think it was possible that this could be the case. I just the way my dad was, and just he was so healthy. I just didn't think it was possible. But then I personally, and I think my sisters did this as well. I have two sisters. Shifted to, okay, what do we have to do next to see if we could beat this? Then once we realized that there was no beating this, we reverted to some sad times, but mostly just trying to cherish the time that he was here with us in the physical, um, and make the most of the time we knew we had together. And that's kind of how I dealt with it, even after. Like, what do we have to do next? And probably made some mistakes as far as not grieving right away and not letting myself grieve right away. But
well, I think you were trying to be strong for all of your family, weren't you?
I was
You were trying
definitely
to be strong for everyone else. So I
right.
think mistake number one that people make in circumstances, whether it's that you lost your job, that it doesn't have to be, you know, the terrible tragedy that we're talking about here, but people, when you're thrown a curveball, whether, I mean, if you lost your job, it is the death of a way of life. And there has to be a grieving process. And if there is not a grieving process, then what you do is you bottle it up, and it just makes it worse. So whatever situation it is that you are going through or have been through, and again, it doesn't necessarily have to be the kind of tragedy that we're talking about here, because there are many different kinds of deaths and many different ways of grieving. I think it is important that people realize that if you're going to grit your teeth, be strong, and, you know, bear up, it is probably the worst thing you can do. Just go bawl your eyes out and let your emotions flow. That's an important step. So Sharon, let's come back to you, shall we? That moment of going down that road, feeling so much pain, so much hurt. You must have felt angry too.
Yes, very much so. The first emotion that I felt with the anger was, you feel abandoned, even though it's the person is not abandoning you because they're not leaving by choice. But you do have a feeling of abandonment. And for a brief second in my mind, I thought, well, there's all his pills in the house. I could just join him. And two words popped into my head, and that's what changed my thinking. Whether these words came from him or from God or from my own inner resources, the words were responsibility and gratitude. The responsibility of that I'm still here to carry on his memory, or for my children who are grown, but you know, the day of the funeral, you could see the pain on their faces, and thinking, well, I cannot be the cause of that kind of pain on top of what they're already experiencing. That's my responsibility, is to them. And gratitude, well, I have a choice. I can wallow in my self pity, or I can change my thinking to being grateful for the time that we had together. All those years, we had some very, very happy times, funny memories, happy memories. Who am I to squander that? It would be wrong of me to do that. And by changing my thinking to gratitude, that was the beginning of me not falling into that pit of despair that many people seem to fall into.
So we've talked about this before, Al. There's the attitude of gratitude, right? And it's very hard for a lot of people to be grateful. It amazes me. I know how hard it is for people who have been together for marriages for years and years and years and years. And so many people, been together for 35 years. I want to say to them, can you just be grateful for the 35 years? But they are mourning the loss of, this. I mean, I do understand you're together and you almost become one person in so many ways. But there is the real danger of thinking, well, but I've lost my partner and I just can't get over it. And I think that this attitude of gratitude is really, that obviously is what drove you forward and helped you to be more positive, right?
Well, because even as a couple, we were individuals. And so one individual is gone from the equation, but another individual is still here. And it's not by choice. He didn't leave by choice, but I'm still here and I have a choice. So what do I want to choose? Do I want to choose to be that sad sack and feeling sorry for myself and being negative and only focusing on the loss? And that would be a shame because he was so much more than just the loss of him. So I didn't want to just focus on that moment, that tragedy of losing him. I thought he deserved better and he would want better for me.
So you basically chose not to be a victim
Yes.
of the misery and the pain that you were going through.
Yes.
Joanne, I'll let you talk for a minute, but I do want to point out something you said at lunch, which I felt I've been thinking about quite strongly. But anyway, let's go to you. What do you think? You said that back when you were in your 20s, you discovered that God could be everything that you needed.
Absolutely. Even when I was younger,
Right.
even younger than that. And I grabbed onto that my mother's passing was a gift to me because I searched to find her. Where did she go? She just couldn't have left me. She had to be somewhere. So it made me search. And
in your
my search, I did come across your book. I started reading Eagle and the Rose and stuff like that and what people go through, but that there's life after death. And that's what inspired me. That's what I held on to besides God, that there was life after death. And it intrigued me. So I went searching for it. And that kept me on the road of, oh, this is fascinating. This can be real. And that's how I got through things, because it was.
So you were searching for your truth,
Yes.
or a truth,
Yes.
that you
What
could
happens.
relate to, and it might not have been my books. It could have been anything at all, really,
Right.
couldn't it? But
it did.
But so I mean, I think that's a fabulous ingredient that we should put in our pot. First of all, the attitude of gratitude, and second of all, of course, we've got this. That's what. You said at lunchtime to me, because Joanne said to me, she said, I really feel that in taking her own life in the weirdest way, your mother gave you a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a phenomenal way to look at it. And I know that there are people raising their eyebrows and thinking,
Wow.
well, how can she look at it that way? Now, she's not, please understand that she is not, as it's happening or she's going through it and over the years, saying, oh, whoopee, thanks for the gift. It is a gift that you didn't want, particularly.
Right.
You would rather have had your mother than the gift.
Right. But when I got into my 20s, I realized this, you know, that
Yeah.
this was
I think it's listening to both of the ways you are dealing with very different situations. I feel like it's the common thread is your connectedness to those you lost actually carried you through or gave you that attitude that you needed. Sharon, you almost were empathizing at one point and said, "Hey, what would my husband want? Like you would not. You want to honor him." And with your mother who you lost, I think that drove you too, if I'm not mistaken, to heal almost and find a different purpose or a purpose for yourself, right?
I think if you have a purpose, or as in your case, Joanne, you're searching, you really, as you're searching, you actually don't have the time, or indeed, please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're going to say yes.
You don't have the time or the inclination to think, woe is me and poor me. You're on a search for something, you don't quite know what it is necessarily, a truth of some kind, or I think in your case you were searching for your mother, or not her per se, but what happens to people when they
Right.
die.
Exactly.
What happens when we lose, where do they go? And the funny thing is, and it just occurs to me, my grandson last year, my daughter and her husband, they lost a very close friend who my grandson Reese knew, and so obviously he comes to me. I'm the guru in the family. I'm the all-knowing and what have you that my 6-year-old comes to. He'll come to me if he's hurt himself. He'll look at his mum and he'll say to his mum, "Tell Mosey such I fell down," or "Tell Mosey I want to ask Mosey such." He gets all shy about it, but then he'll say, "Mosey," he calls me Mosey. Sort of, and he. When they lost this friend, the big thing, and he was 6, so we're relating to a similar age, right here that you
Absolutely.
were. And his big thing to me was, well, where do they go? And
Exactly.
if they're not here, then where are they? And I know a lot of people think, well, they're in the ground, and a lot of people don't understand the life after death stuff that we understand. But in going on that search, and Reese is lucky because I'm his grandmother, so he's got me, so he can always come to me for those answers. But still, I want him to learn to search for himself, and that's exactly, Joanne, what you did.
I did.
And so, in the searching, did you get so focused on the searching that you forgot to be a victim, do you think? Or
I found it like, yes, I was sad. I did have the sadness, but I think that's what was dropped in my lap. And the strength that I had inside me was curious too. And the
curiosity.
Yes, curiosity.
As children are very curious. Yeah.
And you don't think that someone could just leave you,
right,
just like that,
right.
And you need to find out, where did they go? What happened? And
or even the question, well, why did they leave?
Exactly.
What was going on there? So there's that, the curiosity and the searching is a big ingredient in our pot. Do we have any questions, any comments so far, Al?
We do. Yeah, we have Maggie is on. Natasha says, "Good day from Australia."
Hi, everyone.
Joe, a different Joe, says, "Hello, everyone." Natasha says, "My condolences to you. Sorry for the loss of your husband from that terrible disease." let's see. Natasha posted a lot here. Let me just get through.
Little
Jo-
bursts are better.
yeah, Joe says, "I'm so sorry for a young child to have to go through what you did." To Joe, the loss of your mom and father gone. You were very wise to turn to God. When I lost my son, turning to God only got me through and to this day still, 13 years later.
Yes.
Natasha says, grief can be masked. No one ever knew. Um, as life continued on and on, I needed to put a roof over my head. So she probably, it seems like she turned to what she needed to do.
Right. Keep
Um,
yourself busy
yes,
is key. It's a
Yes.
key ingredient. Keep
Yes.
yourself busy with
and
whatever
she,
it is that you need to do.
and Natasha also says, God, because of God, there's life after death. I mean, that leads me to a question, because there are, Rosemary, you mentioned this too. There are those that don't believe in life after death, right? And don't believe in any sort of God. And I'd love to hear thoughts on other, not necessarily how you would deal with it if you didn't have that, but other things that both of you did to deal with it, maybe besides or in conjunction with, understanding.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I believe that my aunt who took me, the love from her and the guidance that she gave me also helped too. You know, so
So support from
support.
family.
Exactly.
So we would then say find friends and family who love you and who care about you, who can support you and help you through.
Love helps a lot.
Yeah.
When you have someone to love
Yeah.
you.
Sharon?
Well, I just think that I'll say live your best life, whether you with the person that you love or whether they leave you for whatever reason. You That's part of that responsibility. You're responsible for your life. You're responsible for the choices that you make in your life. So, and when you lose somebody, you realize life is a gift. So, make the most of it.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago now, I was in a brief relationship with someone who actually said to me, I'd just been out to give healing to someone who was a patient of mine who was actually dying. And it was an awful situation with him and with his family. And I came home, and my boyfriend at that time, briefly, I have to say, boyfriend at that time, I'm not admitting to get too involved there. He said to me, and he was quite sincere, and he meant it. And he said, um, "Oh, I can't wait to die so that I can, do all this stuff and give healing and what have you." I looked at him. Of course, that was the end of the relationship right there, because I looked at him and I said, I had to ask him, "What did you say?" And I said, "You don't have to wait to die to live the best life you possibly can.
Yes.
Get on with it now. Stop hanging about." And it seems such an odd thing for him to say, but there are so many people who I'm too busy. I've got this to do. I've got that to do. I'm too busy to meditate. I'm too busy to think of my health. I'm too busy. I don't have the time, until all of a sudden, well, all you've got left is time, because you become sick, or you lose your job, or you're retired or something. Don't wait until you've got time. That they say, if you want something done, always ask a busy person. And I always think of our friend Chris when I say that, because she's one of the busiest people I know. But you ask her to do something and she's on it. So, don't wait. Here's another a little ingredient. Don't wait until you've got time to do something. Just find the time to do the things you want to do. Which is, I think, Sharon, speaking to what you're saying, is live your best life.
Yes.
Yes, and also I think Al said something very important earlier when you said you have to allow yourself to grieve. Yes, you have to give yourself permission to grieve at times, because you never stop missing the person that you loved. Um, and you're allowed to be grief stricken, and there's no timetable on it. But you also have to allow yourself to enjoy life and give yourself permission and say it's okay, not feel guilty for doing something because that person is not with you anymore.
Yeah, a lot of people feel guilty if they laugh or if they're enjoying themselves, and I see this all the time because it's my job to talk to people, to counsel people in their grief, and so many people feel guilty because they're laughing, and that person, my husband, my son, my brother, whoever it is, they're dead, and here I am laughing and enjoying myself. But I can assure anyone out there who is feeling guilty about enjoying their life and making the most of their life, our loved ones who truly love us, they do not want to see us, weeping all the time. Yes, grieve as much as you like, but find the joy in life as well, because that is what they want for us, and that's what you said, Sharon,
Yes.
about your husband. And I'm sure, Joanne, you feel that your mother would say the same to you,
Absolutely.
right?
Now, yes, I would believe that.
Yeah.
And also feel your pain, feel the emotions you're going through. Find out why you respond in certain ways, like abandonment and stuff. Find out why you felt that way. Now you know why, because you felt abandoned when like me, my mother left and my father left, and you have abandonment issues sometimes. So you have to learn how to work through these things, and don't, and it's not a bad thing. If
I think another important thing here is, and I'm glad you brought this up, Joanna, a really important thing is for people to absolutely acknowledge and to understand, if you have been abandoned, it is not because of any fault of yours. You are not a defect, or a reject. If someone walks away and leaves you, it's their issue. It is not your issue. And with your mother, it's not because of something that was wrong with you or your siblings. It was something that was obviously going on with her, and and that's the same, with people who go through divorce and so on. I remember feeling when my husband left. He actually left. Well, he left 3 times, twice voluntarily. And the third time I helped him on his way. You understand, right?
Yeah.
But again, divorce, the end of a marriage, it is like a death, and people need to grieve. They really need to take that moment. But I remember feeling very, very strongly that it must be me. That I can remember he went off with my best friend. Well, I actually caught him with my best friend, so they both did a runner. And I remember thinking, looking at myself physically, this girl had much bigger boobs than me, and she had, and whatever. And so I remember thinking there must be something wrong with me, because at that time I was sort of very, very skinny, and really, when I think back, I was lovely. But you are made, if you're not careful, you allow other people and their actions define who you are. So don't do that. If somebody leaves, or somebody dies, or somebody abandons you in whatever way, don't look at yourself and go, well, if I had done this, or if I'd been a better person, or if I had done so and so or such and such, it wouldn't have happened. Don't go down that road, because it is really that road that you go down that eats away at your self-esteem. So don't, please, when you're dealing with this stuff, do not feel that it's your fault, right?
You're Rosemary. You're not with any of this stuff. Whatever you have on your mind, you're not your thoughts. It's all about what we say, how you act, and your attitude around your actions. Because you're always going to have those thoughts, right?
I always say people can only do to you what you allow them to do.
Yes.
And if people all the time will say, oh, well, he did this, or he said that, and he hurt me when he did so and so and such and such. Well, get a grip. Stop allowing these people to affect you in this way. I had a situation with someone who's very, very close to me who was struggling with their job, and it was somebody else who simply was not happy with the work that they were doing. Now, the work that they were doing, there was nothing wrong with it, and everybody else loved it, but this one person was continually critical of it. And you can go down the road of, you know, I I feel awful. I don't want to do this job anymore because I'm not capable. Because you allow that one person to intimidate you, to eat away at your self-esteem. And I had to say, don't. You're allowing that person to get to you. You have confidence in you, because for every one person who doesn't like you, there might be 10 who do like you. Focus on the positives and let go of the negatives. People can only do to you what you allow them to do, and I think that's a very, very important thing that we should all remember.
Yes.
What do you girls say to
I
that?
actually say
Say
that all the time. I always
to
tell
me.
her, people treat you the way you allow them to treat you.
Yes,
You allow them to treat you badly, then you're telling them it's okay
exactly.
to treat you that way.
Yes.
So
Yes,
I've said that many, many times.
absolutely.
It's hard if you have a low self-esteem. It's hard, isn't it, to remember that
Yes.
and to grit your teeth and to fight through it.
Yes.
But
worth it.
worth it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Any more comments, or anyone else?
Nope, that's it on comments.
Oh, okay. Does this mean that we've been boring, or does this mean that we've been so fascinating that people are just listening? I like to think this.
I think it means that people are not used to this new time we have yet, Rosemary. I think that's probably what it means.
Oh, well, that's true too. Do you have anything that you would like to add? Because I'm we're almost
So
out of time.
you're almost done. I know we have class, and a thought came to me specifically about grief, and my thought was this: that grief is, and I have had a lot of trouble with this. Rosemary helped me through actually allowing myself to grieve and saying, "Hey, suck it up and get on with it," kind of thing, right?
Are you saying I said that to you?
You didn't say.
Okay, hold on then.
You said to me that I had to allow myself to grieve.
But I didn't say suck it up and don't grieve. Let's be clear.
No, you didn't.
Because it sounded like you said I said that. I would not say that to you. What did I say?
So you said for two reasons. You said to me, you have to let yourself grieve because I was bottling it up, but also as a model for my own children, they wouldn't be able to grieve if their father wasn't able to grieve. But to me, like as I was listening to this, grief should be a relief, but then it shouldn't be a weight, right, or something that pulls you down. And I think it becomes this weight that pulls people down a lot, and a lot of that does have to do with, or everything has to do with attitude with that too, right, Rosemary? I mean, it's a really important distinguishment that I think needs to be made, because those are the people that allow themselves to grieve and get relief from it are the ones that will eventually get past it and have that positive attitude.
They can move
And
on
they
with
can move
their
on,
life.
right?
Yeah.
Versus allowing it to be that weight.
Yeah. I know, I sort of go into, get involved with families, with my patients, people who are dying, and I don't just deal with the person who is sick or dying. I deal with the whole family. We deal with the whole, not just the one part of it. And I've found so often that let's say, I'll give you an example. The guy's got cancer, and everybody's tiptoeing around it. Nobody wants to talk about it because they don't want to upset him. And he's not talking about it to them because he doesn't want to upset them. So consequently, there's no communication going between each other. You can't say what you really want to say because, you can't share your emotions because, oh, God forbid you should burst into tears, you should cry, and then you're upsetting him or the patient, whatever. Please share. If you're a person who's sick and you think that keeping it from your family is a good thing, it is not a good thing, because they will get so upset once you're gone, that you didn't share with them, that you didn't tell them, and you didn't trust them enough to share. And if you are a family member feeling that you've got to tiptoe around the subject, for goodness sake, go in, sit down, hold their hands, burst into tears, because then you're giving them permission to cry. When we see, when we cry, we give others permission to cry. So you can choose. Everybody's holding their breath. Nobody's crying. Nobody's sharing. Nobody's sharing their grief in the moment. And everybody's trying to be strong for everybody else. But the truth of the matter is, when you all disappear into your own little corners and nobody can see you, you sit there and you're crying, crying, crying. Better to cry and to grieve together and holding each other and sharing what is going on. Much better to do that, because this business of everybody's trying to protect everybody else, it doesn't work. And I think also, Sharon, I'm sure you can relate to this. Afterwards, at least that whatever it was that you needed to say to your husband, whatever it was that you need to say to your loved ones as they're going through this, you've said it. You've had the opportunity and you've said it. Far better that than he's gone and now you're kicking yourself because you never said the things you wanted to say.
Right. I agree with that 100%. You learn to tell the people that who you love that you love them every single day, every single time you speak to them, because you never know when the opportunity will come again or if it will come again. So it's very important to share yourself. That's part of sharing yourself with the people that you love, not just family, but friends as well.
Yes.
And not just with people who are sick, but
Yes.
I can remember many years ago, my daughter and I were at a wedding, and it was commented on. In fact, people came up to us halfway through this wedding. The lovely couple came up to us and said to me, "Could you give us the secret of your closeness with your daughter? Because it's very apparent when I'm with Samantha and with Reese, it's very apparent how close we are. Could you give us the secret? Because we're thinking of having children and we want that same relationship with our children that you obviously have with your daughter." That doesn't mean we don't fight, because we do. It doesn't mean that we have a perfect relationship, but because we don't. But we have a closeness and we tell each other things and we talk to each other. And so they said to me, "Can you tell me what the secret is?" And I just looked at them, I smiled, and I said, "I suppose the secret is that you tell them you love them whenever you can." And I've said this to my students, I try to instill this into people as I'm teaching them. If you don't show it, they don't know it. Don't think that the people, your friends, your family, your whoever, don't think that they know that you love them. Mm-hmm. Tell them that you love them. Let there be no doubt about it whatsoever. Tell them that you love them. And my grandson and I, every night we say good night. He made me laugh today. The girls were here as I'm saying good night to Reese, and I always say, I love you. And he'll say, "I love you more," and I'll say, "No, I love you more." But today I said, "I love you more," and he just looked at me. He said, "Prove it." He's 7 next week. Prove it. And I'm thinking, okay, well, and I said, "Well, I love you a gazillion, or whatever it was." I said, "Have I proved it?" He said, "No." But he's just testing and pushing. But my point is, if you don't show it, whatever it is, your frustration, your inability to say what you feel, your telling somebody you love them, whatever it is that you're going through, if you don't show it, don't expect that people can read your mind. Don't expect that people know what it is that that you're going through, that you're feeling. And the amount of times I've said to somebody, "Have I upset you?" "Well, Well, no, well, actually, no, I don't know. You need to tell me. No, you know. Well, you should know if you don't know. For goodness sake, grow up. If I'm asking you, did I upset you? What's the issue? Talk to me. Tell me.
And
because
Rosemary, openness with we're talking about dealing with the unexpected, and this is almost it's prepping in a way, right? Because allowing yourself to be close, Sharon, like you said, to others, sharing with others, being open to either someone you're going to lose or something that's going to happen. Those bonds help you through it, right? Those bonds help you
at
get
the end
past
of the day, you can say, I gave it my best shot.
it.
And that's what you want to do in life, I think, don't be moody, stop sulking. Well, we have a rule in my house, we've had a rule since my daughter was 2 years old. There is no sulking in my house. I do not allow it. If you've got something to say it. Don't say it in an annoying way, just tell me what the issue is. And for all of those people out there who are sulking, well, you should know why I'm upset. But if somebody says, actually, I don't know, for goodness sake, get a grip, grow up, and tell them what the issue is in a good way, in a positive way. Communicate, share, and, show people that you care. If you don't show it, they don't know it.
Rosemary, we're coming up on time.
And that's it. We're done.
But-
Go ahead.
any final thoughts from Joe or Sharon?
The only thing I would say is when we were talking about grieving before, sometimes people don't want to show their grief because they want to be perceived as strong. And I would rather be perceived as resilient rather than strong. The difference is the difference between a tree that just stands in one spot, or think of a sapling that when the wind blows, it bends in one direction. Maybe one day the wind will blow in the other direction, but when the wind stops blowing, you're still standing there. But be resilient and be open to expressing yourself.
I think that's perfect. All right, that's it then. So thank you all for listening. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Sharon. And thank you to my lovely co-host, Al Pisano. If you want to know any more about us, you can email al@alpisano.com, or you can email info@everythingisattitude if you have a subject you'd like us to discuss, or if you'd like to come on the show. It was not a painful experience, was
Not
it?
at all.
So if you'd like to come on the show, you can come and sit on my sofa anytime you like, or whatever. We can do it long distance. If you want to talk to us but you don't want to be on camera, that's also fine. So, and if you want to know any more about me, of course, or you have any ideas, email me, rosemary@rosemaryalte.com. In the meantime, we have to skedaddle because we have a class to go to now. So thank you all for watching, and we shall be back next week at the same time, unless Al tells me differently. 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have to think. We should be back I should be back next Wednesday with Healing Hands Around the World. That's at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, our Thursday morning show, and you can ask questions and so on and so forth. If you want to be put on the mailing list, you have to request it. And so I think that's it for now, Al. So in the meantime, everybody, it is a Thursday evening. The weekend is approaching, so please, please, please have a very, very blessed rest of the day, and have a wonderful weekend and a very blessed weekend, everybody. Thank you very much for watching.
Bye.